Hello and welcome to the Women in BIM Digital Across the Built Environment session today. This is our end of year event. And our event today, we have some exciting speakers and some really interesting insights in the work that Women in BIM undertake all over the world. So I welcome you to our session. And as per previous sessions, this session will be recorded and accessible to you following completion of the presentations today. So we do hope you enjoy today's session and welcome you to our presentations. So to start with, I guess I will give you a bit of an overview on what we'll be speaking about today. But effectively, just to begin, I'd like to acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people as the traditional custodians of the land on which we live and work. And I would like to pay respect, as would all of the Women in BIM members and supporters, to our elders past, present and future. So today's agenda, again, as I mentioned, very exciting series of presentations this afternoon or this morning, wherever you are in the world. We have a introduction, obviously, by myself. My name is Rebecca De Cicco. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the chair of Women in BIM, and I've been working with the group in almost, I was going to say in excess, but almost 10 years. So we're actually hitting our 10-year anniversary next year, which is really exciting. I'll give you an overview and an update on the activities and some of the work that we've been doing all over the world. We'll also have a short video from our gold sponsor, Aurecon, and we will have a series of presentations, which I'll introduce as we move through today, by our panelists, Adam Beck, Andrew Curthoys, Luke Belfield, and Kesinee Wattanaveerachai. So I will present firstly on behalf of Women in BIM, and then I will move to, I guess, extended profiles of our speakers. So thank you to, again, to our sponsors and to all of those that have been involved in the Women in BIM initiative. If it wasn't for, obviously, the sponsors and the supporters, the volunteers, etc., we wouldn't be able to obviously undertake the work that we do. So I do thank our sponsors and our volunteers and all of the regional leads all over the world in supporting us. But just, I guess, for context, we have had the organisation Glider BIM have sponsored Women in BIM for several years. So from the very beginning of the, I guess, the beginning of our journey in the UK, and they act as our gold sponsor for the second time running in the UK and Europe. And i3PT certification is our silver sponsor in UK and Europe, who have generally offered, obviously, their funds to support our group. Across APAC, this is the first year, so 2021 is the first year that we've actually been able to secure sponsors in APAC and Asia Pacific, and they include Aurecon, and obviously that's the company that I now represent, Aurecon as the gold sponsor for Women in BIM. We have GHD as the silver sponsor and Mott MacDonald acting as our bronze sponsor. So thank you to the sponsors for their help and their support. As I mentioned earlier, Women in BIM have effectively been around for around 10 years. We've had obviously a change or a shift in the core team. What we call the core team are those that have effectively got quite secure and I guess focused activities that support the initiative. Women in BIM core team is now extensive across both the UK, Europe, and obviously Australia, South America, and the US. It's very much a global core team, and some of the organisations listed here supporting that. And these roles are voluntary roles. So we thank our core team in obviously in their regions, respective regions, for their support, as well as their organisations for allowing them to spend time helping us. But I guess just to quickly mention, for those of you who know a little bit about Women in BIM, you'll know that we've been massively supported by our Global Vice Chair, Vicki Reynolds, who's decided to step down from the role from next year, so from the 2nd of December, which will be our last event in the UK at that time. So we just wanted to acknowledge and thank Vicki for all her hard work and her contribution to the industry. Vicki has been instrumental in the UK BIM initiatives, as well as the work that she's been undertaking with Women in BIM, but supporting knowledge, skill, and development around the digital twin methodologies, the golden thread, and the digital management of fire safety information. We thank Vicki for her contribution, and obviously it's not goodbye, but we obviously will have Vicki involved in some capacity moving forward. So with that, I will start the first, I guess, introduction video, which is very much to give our gold sponsor a little bit of visibility for some of the work they do. So I hope you enjoy this short video. Yeah, we've had some difficulty with the sound, apologies, but hopefully this will give you some indication of some of the work that Aurecon have been doing across their visualization studio and as part of the digital services that we currently offer across our organisation. Great, thank you for your attention on that one. Apologies, we will be sharing this recording with you after the session, so apologies for no sound on that one. So I guess the movement now into the introduction session very much is to discuss in a few minutes, really. You know, I've only got a few minutes left, but effectively a summary of the group and our activities globally. And obviously, everybody that is on our session today knows a little bit about women in BIM. And just to remind you that we are all about our collaborative network, and our objectives and core drivers haven't changed from the beginning of the founding the initiative, and they include to support and encourage young women or women in industry in the BIM or digital engineering space to effectively share knowledge, to work together and to grow skills. To also to attract and promote young women in entering these types of careers. Obviously, we all know that there is a shortage at the moment of these types of skills in industry. And then finally, to advance and retain. Far too many women are leaving industry, and we really want to address that, especially when it comes to BIM, digital engineering, or any digital construction background. And the reason this is important to us as a group is that we know obviously that there are critical skills shortages, but we also know that women and ethnic minorities are still underrepresented in the construction industry. And effectively, all of the data out there still suggests that in many regions of the world, there is still an issue with gender skills and gender pay gaps. So we are trying to support this, I guess, growth in this area and effectively trying to change the way that this currently is being undertaken. This also aligns really nicely to what we know as the United Nations Sustainability Goals, where these sustainability goals effectively are put in place to support recommendations to governments all over the world in regard to strategic policies and principles. And many of these sustainability goals effectively relate to the way that obviously the industry and the changing world will need to adapt in terms of the way we would need to address these issues. As you can see here, number 5, gender equality. Yes, it is about wider issues or wider concerns such as violence against women and other risks you can see here, but also it is very much about women's equal participation effectively, and gender parity still remains far off. Globally, there are still low representation of women across parliaments, in local government and in managerial positions. And this is something that women in BIM effectively will need or are addressing. We are growing very quickly. Our group continues to grow across the world, where the numbers are quite diverse in terms of the different followers we have across the different groups, but we are effectively trying to enable this growth so that we have a conduit for support for women in the differing regions of the world, and effectively to address the low representation of women in the different regions. And we have a lot of work that we're undertaking around that. Many of you know, obviously, we host webinars and podcasts, but again, this is really to promote the fact that we are trying to engage industry, trying to act as those thought leaders on these topical subjects relating to BIM, digital construction, digital engineering. So our webinars are hosted as video content on our YouTube channel, or also embedded on our website, and our podcasts are the same. Our regional leads are very important to us because women in BIM regional leads effectively are given a key set of responsibilities, and those responsibilities are to effectively align their projects and their events and their participation with industry to the core themes I discussed earlier. We actually have seen amazing growth in this space where women in BIM regional leads have been in place to support our group across 30 different countries now, which is incredible. We have 51 regional leads appointed as part of the group, and this is continuing to grow, both male and female regional leads, as you can see here. This is our women in BIM regional leads across APAC community, and we have great representation from the different regions and from different organisations. And many of these people that you can see listed here represent both Australia, or represent Australia, New Zealand and Asia, and we are trying to grow obviously that initiative across the group. We do have a large representation obviously now through Aurecon, but that's purely based on the fact that obviously there's more visibility now that I've joined that company. But we are obviously trying to grow our regional leads in this region, so if you are interested, please get in touch. The webinars that we have sent, or that we have hosted rather, across the world really have focused on topical issues. We know that different regions of the world in regard to BIM and digital have different level of maturity, and therefore our webinars, as you can see here, very much relate to the different initiatives occurring over the different regions. And to find out more, again, visit our webpage, or our website rather. And one of the largest growing initiatives for women in BIM is our mentor scheme, and this is the second year we've been running our mentor scheme. Again, the aim is to support, educate and provide insight to young women. You can see here the numbers are growing. So in our first year, listed at the bottom of this diagram, the numbers were quite low, but that number has jumped. But as you can see also, we like to highlight that we always require more mentors. We can't match everybody because we just don't have enough applications for mentors. And mentees are growing, the number of mentees are growing. So again, this just reinforces the fact that we need that support. Our unmatched applicant activities that we have hosted are for those that we couldn't match, those mentees we couldn't match. You can see here some great topics discussing basics around BIM or building information modelling, career coaching, technical BIM or technical digital engineering, and even processes and standards and culture. So our final event for the year is the 2nd of December, and I will wrap up shortly, but just so you're aware, if you are interested in becoming a mentor, we will have our launch on the 2nd of December for applications. So we are encouraging our members and supporters to get on board, and here's some data around when we'll hope to achieve some of the processes and obviously the project timeline really for 2022. And finally, we've appointed a new mentor lead. Sorry, I moved that past that really quickly. Natalia Oliveira, she'll be supporting us out of Uruguay to effectively manage the mentor scheme as a volunteer, which is just wonderful. So now we move to the exciting part of today, and we have some wonderful speakers in place. And I'd just like to again thank the speakers for their support and obviously their time today, because obviously we're all busy people. But to start with, I'd like to introduce Adam Beck, and what I will say a little bit about Adam, obviously, is the Executive Director of the Smart Cities Council. Adam is very much an advocate and a strong leader in the smart city space. He's been working with this organisation for many years and very much has been the instrumental driver for the action and the investment in I guess the processes, the technologies, and the way that the smart cities initiatives have come about. So I'd like to welcome Adam to our session. And Adam, I will turn off my camera and allow you to share your screen. Give me a second. Over to you.
Okay, Rebecca, thanks so much. Are you seeing my screen now?
Perfect, yep.
Excellent. Rebecca, I'd like to congratulate Women in BIM. Almost 10 years. That's a massive achievement, or an achievement, you know, around the corner.
Thanks.
We're also sort of turning 10 next year, and it's certainly a marathon and not a sprint. So congratulations to yourself and the leadership team and everyone else that's part of your community. I'd like to share a few little notes with everyone today on some work that we're doing at the Smart Cities Council. And I share this more so to hopefully grow opportunities to engage further and collaborate with the broader marketplace. And I suppose from one, you know, organisation and community to another, share some of the successes we're having, but also some of the mountains we still have to climb. And I've pitched this presentation as sort of what's the next move for city shaping, and it's something that we continue to ponder at the Smart Cities Council and use that as a bit of a driver to shape our programs and initiatives. I'd like to firstly acknowledge that our North Star at the Smart Cities Council are the UN Sustainable Development Goals. I think we have something in the order of 2,950 days until 2030. So to me, that says we don't have a lot of time to achieve a whole range of really important goals that globally we've all committed to. So we think there's no better framework for technology and data investment and action than the UN SDGs, and I was delighted to also see that they very much align with the work that you're doing at Women in BIM. So we share very common aspirations there. The other thing, again, sort of a bit of a line of sight to sort of part of your core mission around equity and inclusion. We want to make sure that when we talk about some of the technical work that we do and that we're trying to advocate for, such as digital twin, we want to make sure that this is an opportunity for everyone. And I'm going to focus in on our digital twin work and what we're seeing and hearing. But I start by saying that the conversation we're trying to drive around digital twin, which is challenging but also has a lot of opportunity, is one in which it's a conversation for all. We view digital twin as a capability, and we want it to be a capability for all, every department, division, agency, discipline, geography, and also scale. Like all good transformation processes and concepts within the built environment that I've been familiar with for a long time, whether that be broadly sustainability. I also spent a good 5 years in the green building movement, if not longer. Definitions are important, but also definitions are something that as sort of technicians, we like to continually define and redefine. And so we've been on a bit of a journey at the Smart Cities Council to try and sort of in some way nip this in the bud, but it is still a little bit elusive. But just to sort of set the scene, our view on digital twin and the opportunity for the built and also natural environment is to view it as a set of capabilities that can really, of course, accelerate and make our investment and actions and decisions more targeted, more strategic, so that we can deliver better, quicker, and cheaper. And these 5 core capabilities of digital twin are working well for us, particularly engaging both with policymakers and also as practitioners alike. When we talk about digital twin being a set of capabilities, when we sort of lay it out like this, it's showing multiple on-ramps. It resonates with people. We certainly have the demand side and policymakers doing excellent work in, you know, one or more of those areas of capability, but it also allows us to sort of map where some of the gaps are. We've just come through a pretty intense 2-week exercise at the council on our digital twin challenge, looking at where and how, for example, GIS capability maps with digital twin, and no doubt we'll be doing that with BIM in the very near future. So the digital twin for us is this set of capabilities that really helps power better decision making. About 2 years ago, probably a little bit more, March 2019 it was, we had a group of our members really sort of ask the question, you know, what happens with digital twin if we don't standardize some of the thinking and definition and scope early? Does it potentially get away from us? And, you know, when you sort of lose it and it means anything and everything to anyone, it kind of then becomes meaningless. So we very quickly acted, and we tried to pull some documentation together based on the experience of our members, and we published a little guidance note that kind of put some boundaries around it, but it also left a lot of the ink on the page wet, so to speak. So an acknowledgement there that there was still a lot of work to do, and there still is. And we used our events, like you use your events as well, to sort of engage, facilitate the dialogue, challenge our strategic thinking collectively. So we've run a number of sort of digital twin weeks. We've just come out of the 2021 Digital Twin Week, and it's our testing ground for our latest thinking, but also we sort of participate with our ears wide open, so to speak, to get a read on the mood in the room and where the gaps are and what still is challenging us in terms of moving forward and advancing digital twin as an opportunity for better cities and places and infrastructure. And events are great, and defining things are great, but unless we sort of build a marketplace for these transformation processes we want to advance, you know, where there's good demand, solid demand, great supply, kind of we never really get out of pilot mode, or we never get out of sort of conversation mode. So we set off, and our task force spent about 18 months developing a digital twin strategy, or what we thought might become a digital twin strategy for Australia and New Zealand. And this was in lieu of the federal government, our national governments in Australia and New Zealand, really doing anything, or their lack of doing anything. So we thought we'd step in, and we ended up with a 70-page Google document that was still very much unfinished, but we wanted to sort of really bring something out to the marketplace, the broader community. So we decided to sort of convert it into a blueprint. It halved in size and drafted some key recommendations. So we sort of we've started to sort of set sail some more strategic policy recommendations for Australia and New Zealand, and that's been resonating, which is good, but unfinished business, so to speak. And then reflecting on sort of the great ideas and recommendations that are contained in documents as words, the key question then was, you know, how do we actually do this? Particularly with a concept like the digital twin, which has a lot of different interpretations. It's been around for a long time, but in some sense, it's brand new for some. And of course, how do we make sure that broad sectors are sort of brought into the relevant opportunities that it offers? So the next real logical move for us was to, well, let's try it all out. Let's get a bunch of people together and let's really try and catalyze the marketplace. Let's do a bit of the testing and have the conversations. And one thing led to another, and we launched the Digital Twin Challenge, and it's underway at the moment. We started going out to the marketplace for some sounding and registrations of interest in late 2020, and we ended up with 17 organisations stepping forward, willing to sort of give up time and sponsor an 18-month program of activity and engagement that really is focused around advancing 13 projects that we've identified. And these are more horizontal projects. They're very diverse, and the idea would be that we'd deliver some output, some knowledge resources, blueprints and templates and tools that we would share freely to everyone, so that we all benefited in terms of the opportunity to sort of kickstart our digital twin journey. So that's sort of the planned output. The program, as I said, goes for 18 months. So around about this time next year, we'll be essentially publishing 13 knowledge resources and donating them back to government and industry for free, so that hopefully there's some people out there that can kickstart their digital twin journey, not having to reinvent the wheel or start from scratch, or think blue sky necessarily. That there's some some tools that really help us get a move on pretty swiftly, because of course that all comes back to our mission of delivering on the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Remember, 2,950 days to go. So this was really all about market making and catalysing the marketplace. The organisations are very diverse, also very rewarding to see such a diversity in public, private sector, academia coming forward, acknowledging and recognising that digital twin capability is a really big opportunity. So we're very humbled to have such a great cohort of participants that are going to take some of the heavy lifting on our market making journey with digital twin. And when you look at the 13 projects, we've got 5 clusters. We've got some really exciting projects, predominantly horizontal projects, because it's the horizontal projects, it's the processes that we think are really valuable to sort of share via those knowledge resources eventually. So I'm not going to read through all of these, but I do highlight one in particular, which is probably the most relevant to being an in-place pilot or a project level pilot, which is now selected, and it is a small but growing urban growth area in New South Wales, in the local jurisdiction of Lake Macquarie. So the city of Lake Macquarie has put up their hand, and the town and the little community is called Morisset, and it is currently undergoing a planning process right now on its future. And we have the very unique opportunity to run a parallel process of urban planning with a digital twin lens to it. So we've got a very unique opportunity there, and this community is a classic example of the type of urban growth that we're experiencing all across Asia Pacific. It's got transportation issues, growth issues, density issues, natural landscape issues. So we feel it's a great little sandbox for us to test a lot of these processes and ideas out. And so, you know, here are sort of some key questions that we're using to frame all of this work, and that going back to the original sort of title of this presentation, you know, what's our next move as city shapers? These are 3 questions that we're looking to slowly unpack, and along the way collaborate with others. So we'd love to certainly keep a conversation going with women in BIM about these. But what does a digital twin enabled growth plan or process look like compared to sort of our business as usual? Knowing that data fuels the digital twin, how do we procure data leadership? Yes, procuring data, but how do we procure data leadership where we have a clear purpose on the data that's collected, and we have built-in privacy and security and ethics and governance? So that's a big one that we're looking at, procuring data leadership in the process. And we also know, and this is probably the biggest, if anything, tech and data really isn't a barrier or challenge for us per se, but what we do know is that not all policymakers and practitioners as individuals have the necessary capability around digital twin. So the key sub-questions for us are, who needs to know what when it comes to digital twin, and who needs to do what? So we look forward to sort of playing with those big questions on what's next in city shaping using digital twin capability over the next year or two. But Rebecca, My final slide is one that I sort of sketched up on a pad around about 2 years ago, and I didn't know a lot about digital twin, but I know that when you can connect things to the internet, things can really become powerful. And what's playing out with our digital twin challenge work is that when you look at the data sets, the information that we're gathering, the sensors that we're using, it's quite overwhelming when you think that we can spatially and visually start to really present that to stakeholders at any moment that we want to. We just need the capability to do so, and I think also the willingness to do so. So I look at this, so when you look at what we could feed into a digital twin, you need to wonder what and how would our processes of built environment planning and design, how would they look if we really embrace this full potential? When you look at the kind of data sets there that we have access to, but not necessarily, disclose or open or indeed feed into the capability of a twin. So really exciting, I think, opportunities, and we look forward to probably sharing more as we go along, and we'd love to sort of keep in touch with Women in BIM to see if any of this is an opportunity to collaborate further. Our Digital Twin Hub has more information on it. If you head to the digitaltwinhub.org, and you'll find more ongoing updates on the challenge and other things that we're doing. But for now, I'll leave it there. Thanks, Rebecca.
Wonderful, thanks, Adam, and really excited to hear, obviously, the work that you're doing and the work that you have been doing, really, around smart cities and Smart Cities Council. And we've had conversations. Effectively, Adam and I had a discussion around smart cities only recently, and there was a podcast, I think, that you guys have hosted. And I know there's been a lot of people that have contributed, as volunteers as well, really, as part of this initiative. So thank you so much. And just a quick point to our members or our the people that have attended our session today. We will go to questions once all of our speakers have presented today. So we will take questions after the next few presentations. So with that, thanks, Adam. Really appreciate the presentation. It was excellent. So thanks again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move to sharing my screen, and this time I'm going to welcome virtually but not in person today our second speaker, which I'll just share my screen. Yep. Is Andrew Curthoys. Andrew has actually decided to share with us today a video recording of his presentation, which hopefully there are no audio issues. So I'm going to start the video presentation now. And as a backup to the intro to this session, if we don't get any audio, I will be sharing this with you after today's session. So Andrew, for those of you who don't know, is the Digital Relationship Manager at Cross River Rail. Andrew's been a long-time supporter of Women in BIM. He's helped us and been involved in many webinars across the last few years. And his role effectively was developed to integrate the data generated by the information models that Cross River Rail and its partners are developing. So effectively, he is working with the design team, working with the partners to ultimately support the development of data and the way that the data is used to inform the assets operation, which is wonderful. Today, Andrew's presentation very much will look at the digital enablement from infrastructure policy, from policy to project rather, and it also discusses the value of his work within APAC, or the Australian BIM Advisory Board, in supporting the evolving policy processes. So hopefully you'll be able to hear the presentation, and I welcome Andrew through his video presentation again. Thank him for his involvement.
Good afternoon. My name is Andrew Curthoys, Chair of the Australian BIM Advisory Board and Digital Relationship Manager at Cross River Rail. I'm delighted to be here today to celebrate another full year with Rebecca and Nicole and Women in BIM, but also delighted to be presenting with Adam, Luke, project is being built, and to forge new tracks on the journey to reconciliation that will be impactful and sustainable. Accordingly, I acknowledge and pay our respects to the traditional owners of this country, the place of our meeting, and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and their communities. I pay my respects to the culture of our First Nations peoples and to their elders past and present. Today, I just want to talk with you about what APAC is and why we believe in digital by default. I also want to run through the strategic framework that we presented to the Board of Treasurers, digital by default that's been introduced by Infrastructure Australia in its 2021 Australian Infrastructure Plan, the digital enablement work on Cross River Rail, and of course the future opportunities that we are seeing and witnessing that I believe are going to take us further. The Australasian BIM Advisory Board was set up by the Australian Procurement and Construction Council and also by the Australian Construction Industry Board. We are proudly supported by NatSpec, Building Smart Australasia, Standards Australia and Austroads. And what we are doing at APAC is bringing leading thinkers from within government, industry and academia, as well as promoting best practice and consistent approaches to BIM standards and requirements. We're taking a leadership role by coordinating this consistent adoption of BIM across Australia. What we're also wanting to do, though, is promote change right from the procurement process through the planning, design, construction, all the way into operations. We're also looking to promote consistent standards across Australasia and maintain oversight of the efforts occurring. We want to identify the gaps and promote solutions. But as well, we want to be that impartial bridge between key stakeholders, promoting new technologies, standards and theories by making digital the only way forward. The Australasian BIM Strategic Framework was presented to the Board of Treasurers back in 2019. And what it's doing is providing clarity and certainty for policymakers. This is very important because Australia is still a small market in the global sense, but we want to ensure that we have consistency for our contractors, for our designers, but also for everyone involved in the procurement process through the delivery of assets. We've done a lot of work around BIM process consistency, asset information, our digital twins position paper, as well as a position statement on BIM and digital engineering. I encourage you to have a look at our website, abab.net.au. Please get in, there's really great resources there. It's well worth checking out. The Australian Infrastructure Plan that was released back in September by Infrastructure Australia is a powerful document. It has 29 key recommendations and moves from digital by exception to digital by default. The underlying requirement is to increase productivity of the infrastructure sector by increasing digital adoption. And this will improve infrastructure planning, delivery and operations. This will be transformational for the sector, but also it will provide guidance to governments. And that's what is needed here in Australia. I just want to run through a little bit about what we're doing here in Cross River Rail. Cross River Rail is the single largest infrastructure project ever undertaken by the Queensland Government. It's got a total cost of around $6.88 billion, with a government contribution of around about 5.4, private sector contribution around about $1.5 billion. During the pandemic, we've been injecting 4.1 million a day into the economy here in southeast Queensland, equivalent of 125 million a month. Now, this has been transformational to get people working and get activity happening, but it's also been so much more because we are transforming the way that Brisbane is going to operate into the future. With the recent announcement too of the Wollongabba precinct to be the host for the 2032 Olympics, This has provided us with renewed impetus to get things moving and improve the way that we travel around Brisbane and around southeast Queensland. So as you can see, there'll be 4 new underground stations, the 8 upgraded service stations. There'll be 3 new Gold Coast infill stations. And of course, there are major precincts at Poggo Road, Wollongabba, Albert Street, Roma Street, and Exhibition. This will transform the way that the city works, will transform the way that we use the city, and will make it much more interesting for commuters, visitors to Brisbane, and indeed visitors to the Olympics. We're also introducing the ETCS, the European Train Control System, which will allow for greater efficiency and safety. Another major step forward. But how are we doing all this? Well, it's done through a common data environment where we can use building information modelling, the software and the suite of digital engineering elements attached to it. We can also integrate that with GIS information, which has just been critical in our precinct delivery, which you'll see in a moment. Of course, we've been able to use it for communications and engagement, because by using a visualisation and gamification environment, we've been able to show key stakeholders what's planned, when it's planned, what it will look like with a high level of confidence. We've been driving all of this through a really important level of data that gives good outcomes, that gives good predictions, that helps with decision making, and also will help in operations. One of the things, of course, we've been doing is using and leveraging the work of the Queensland Government through the Transforming SEQ City proposition, our digital enablement policy that was put in place, a geospatial reference frame that we've developed. We've been integrating very effectively building information modelling and GIS workflows. We've also gone and learned lessons and taken advice from projects that have gone before us, which has been critical. We've also been making promises to ourselves along the way to be much more innovative. So innovation has driven a lot of work that we do. And what has this delivered? It's delivered what we call our DNA, our whole project digital network approach. It provides the foundations for digital twin that we believe will be coming to Brisbane, to southeast Queensland, and indeed to Queensland through this next decade. We're also including digital planning in the precincts and environments that we're doing. But we're enabling 3D visualisation all the way, laying those foundations to give us up to 7D real-time operation all the way through our project. What does this hold for us? The future, as we know, is digital. By creating these digital foundations, creating the information on which we can use in the future, we are really developing great opportunities with key stakeholders. We are wanting to make sure that we build the platforms which will help future decisions, help future investment strategies, and indeed help future projects. So we're working with the Department of Transport and Main Roads. Queensland Rail is our project partner, Department of Resources and 3D Cadastre, and informing groups like States Queensland, QPS, our Queensland Police Service, Queensland Foreign Emergency, Queensland Ambulance Service, our utilities here in southeast Queensland, Queensland Urban Utilities, and getting them to work together to look at the value of the data and the value of the information to help key decisions. We're also helping lay those foundations for the development of SEQ's digital twin, and of course working towards the 2032 Olympics. The work we've been doing has been so much more, because what we've been able to do is improve decision making all the way through. We've been able to get better design reviews. We've been able to get better progress reports. We've been able to look at the constructability of the whole network, because all the work we're doing is underground. We can't suddenly stop and pull everybody out. We have to make sure it's constructible virtually, so we know it will be constructible underground. do lots of reporting, and that's where the data comes in. It's been very helpful to report to the state government, to our minister, the transport minister, using GIS, using visualisation, and a whole lot of other rich elements. And of course, it's meant that we can have great stakeholder engagement too, because we're all looking at the same information. It's not prettied up or dumbed down for different groups. It's all consistent information. And of course, what we've been able to do is use this to get better outcomes for the community. And that's key, because that's why we're developing the work we're doing. But here's an example of some of the things. Let's focus on this pump house, and in particular, that valve. When we look at that valve, there are 86 parameters that we've identified out of 207 overall. These model attributes are critical because what we wanted to do is be able to identify any defects, identify any issues, particularly when we get into operation, where an operator can quickly reduce risk and get this information, work out which valve needs to be replaced and replace it without interruptions to service delivery. So that's been key. And our models have been so much more than that. Here, for example, is work that's going on under Roma Street. You just saw, you see what it looks like before, this is what it'll look like eventually. Just fantastic to get people understanding about the new assets that are coming. Here's another piece of gold. We're going to focus on Roma Street Station. When you actually look at it, this had Brisbane's ugliest building. It's 3 minutes to New Albert Street Station and 4 minutes to Exhibition. People will be able to walk into the city, cross to the south bank to our cultural centre, and to Suncorp Stadium. We modelled for the first time the Brisbane Transit Centre, which we then subsequently pulled down. It was famously known as Brisbane's ugliest building. But we wanted to show the community what was there and what was going to be developed. And this is what we were able to show. Now this we know is correct because we've got all the architectural renderings, we've got all the engineering information, we've got all the detail. So what we've been able to show the community is what the new station is going to look like and how we can access it. But there's more, because we wanted to show them what a journey would be like when we came in on a train from the north side of the city. So we were able to show when we get off the train what the journey will be all the way up to the surface. Now this is fantastic because it shows the layout of the platform, it shows the wayfinding. We know that the escalators are correct because we have the models from the companies that have been commissioned to provide those escalators. The wayfinding is clear, provides evidence of where we're going and how we're going to get there. And by 2025, we can see the renderings, the finishes, all the information is clear. And this shows the value of digital information to be able to replicate it in the virtual sense before we get to building it in the actual sense. And hey, by 2025, look how slim Brisbane's going to be. There's not an overweight person around. No one's looking at their phones anymore. We've got rid of all those pesky phones, but we're still a bit stiff because we haven't really straightened up after watching those phones for so long. Okay, so the avatars aren't quite right, but everything else is fine. When we exit the surface, we can actually get out and start having a look at what the precinct is going to become. You'll see some great outbuildings. I want to now take you up above the pedestrian area. Let's fly high and have a look at the layout of what the precinct at Roma Street is going to look like. To our right, you can see that dome building. That is going to be the Brisbane Arena, which will host the Brisbane Aquatic Centre for the 2032 Olympics. The buildings on our left are only indicative of what the sort of public development could be. So this shows the way that the city is going to look at its western end. It's going to change the way we work. It's going to improve outcomes for everybody. But what are the opportunities for the future going to improve? Well, as I mentioned, There'll be things like smart station planning. We'll be able to identify much more service delivery focus, a better outcome. Whole range of new ideas and technologies that will improve the experience, not only for the commuter, but also for the operator of the assets. We'll have a spatially enabled digital twin that will allow us to actually think about what some of the dependencies are and what some of the opportunities are. So it will evolve, it will grow, and we'll get better outcomes. But I just want to leave you with that. The future is knocking on our doors. It is fantastic. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you to everybody. Enjoy your upcoming Christmas and festive season. Enjoy the break. Make sure you make time for yourselves. Make sure you make time for your families and significant others. And thank you very much for another wonderful year, Rebecca. All the very best. Bye.
Thanks, Andrew, and thanks, Andrew, for providing such an insightful presentation around obviously the work that he's been undertaking rather on a policy level, as well as the work that he's been undertaking on a project level. What great insight, and I think everybody's very excited about what's happening in Queensland at the moment. So thanks again. So with that, I will now move to our next speaker, and our next speaker is Luke Belfield. Luke Belfield is the Acting Victorian Chief Engineer for Office of Projects Victoria. Another great presentation our way, as in March of 2020, obviously OPV released their VDAS, or the Victorian Digital Asset Strategy, that Luke, I'm sure, will be talking about today. And really, you know, Luke's role is to act as the lead of the engineering innovation team to effectively advance engineering in Victoria and technology innovation for infrastructure projects. So again, I thank Luke for volunteering your time, and also, as a quick note, I thank OPV for acting as a supporter to Women in BIM. So thanks, Luke, over to you.
Thank you very much, and I'd just like to say thank you for the, I guess, the first speaking opportunity with Women in BIM. Hopefully there's many other opportunities to go forth. So I just wanted to say that the presentation today will be about an overview of the Digital Build program, which is based off the back of the Victorian Digital Asset Strategy, which we released in March 2020. So to set the scene, as a lot of you would be experiencing, Australia is facing an infrastructure boom. And you can see here the wave of incoming infrastructure projects being delivered. Victoria is a significant contributor to that boom, with a spend of 144 billion at the last budget. So we recognise that not only will these assets be built in the next 5 to 10 years, but need to be maintained for the next 50 to 100 years. So it makes a good context to understand the opportunity there. With that opportunity, the construction industry, building this pipeline, has a long way to go. As you can see on the graph on the right, construction currently is one of the lowest digitised sectors, just above agriculture and hunting. And we're looking at how we can improve this for Australia. So compared to where it should be, up around advanced manufacturing, oil and gas, an industry that I used to work in and went through a digital transformation probably 20 years ago, and utilities and chemicals. So it's important to understand the context for where Office of Projects Victoria sit, or where I sit in government. So Victorian government has 9 departments, and my organisation sits within the Department of Treasury and Finance. So that means it plays a central role in providing systemic improvements right across all the other portfolios. So that means initiatives we deliver have an impact across transport, justice, education, health, all the different infrastructure projects you can think of. In addition to a whole of government perspective, we also deliver technical project support to some of Australia's biggest infrastructure projects being led out of Victoria. So the Office of Projects Victoria has 5 teams, illustrated here in orange. We have a team across capability systems, data analytics, project advisory, strategy and productivity, and I'm from the engineering and innovation team. I'll lead that team. Within our team, we have the engineering team looking at sustainability, project controls, and design engineering. And we also have our digital build team, which is what we're here to talk about today. And within our digital build team, we're leading initiatives across digital assets and offsite construction or prefab. So it's important to understand our focus and our why, and really we're focused on our efforts on relieving what we've determined to be the big four repeat pain points for Victorian infrastructure. So we're aiming to improve planning processes with streamlined digital submissions and approvals, making tendering and procurement easier and cheaper with digital submissions, comparisons and standards taken from one contract to the next, enhance our ability to measure genuine and current project performance with analytics, dashboards, and improved data, leverage the technology to improve design and engineering practice with visualization and things like clash detection, which have been around for a while now. So this is a significant job, but we've already started by setting up a program of works called the Digital Build Program. So this program is funded to drive whole of government transformations to build smarter clients, bringing industry along with us, and we're underway. So we released our Victorian Digital Asset Strategy in March 2020. This was also an Engineers Australia finalist award winner as well in that year. And so we've built upon this to deliver a program of works called the Digital Build Program to build a smarter major projects pipeline and deliver better outcomes for Victorians through better information management. To implement the Digital Build Program, we're the chair of the interjurisdictional working group connecting all Australian states and territories to share lessons and knowledge around BIM implementation. But our also purpose in that forum is to drive harmonisation of BIM initiatives across Australia, and we're pleased to extend this effort by joining the Global BIM Steering Committee as well. So as I mentioned earlier, while we have a focus on project delivery, we recognise that projects deliver a service for people. Therefore, decisions made at the front end of the life cycle have a significant impact on the way that they're handed over into operations, and therefore the service they deliver or the benefits that can accrue from a project. And so I mentioned we have a digital asset to work stream, but I guess a lot of you are asking what is digital asset, and there's a lot of acronyms and words that's used in this sort of industry, but we've tried to define this as if you have a physical infrastructure and clients, there's also the digital aspect that goes with it. So I want to highlight when they're not just talking about 3D information and visualization, such as digital twins, but all of the time, cost, procurement, and supply chain information that's required to deliver our infrastructure. So it's really integrated. So you think about the opportunities that come when you integrate those different data streams. So you can have constructability reviews, you can do time sequences on your projects, you can do a lot of the different things that Andrew explained in his last presentation. And by understanding this associated information and its influence on project delivery, this diagram explains the comparison between traditional projects and our new way of working. So currently depicted in the red line, we have projects losing information quality and value when information is handed over between parties or project stages. And through good digital information management, we're actually reducing the loss of information and improving projects before they start, and importantly, when they're handed over into operations. And to tackle this issue, it really requires a change management approach. So we are undertaking initiatives across process, technology and people to ensure this is not simply a technology-based problem, and we're also bringing the right people along on the journey with it as well. As you can imagine, there's many different types of stakeholders across the government and its contractors that we're bringing along. So within our digital build program, we have our digital assets workstream and our offsite construction workstream. In the digital assets workstream, we've released a digital asset policy, which I'll talk about in a minute. And we're also delivering pilots to demonstrate good practice, capture the benefits and share this across government. And within our offsite construction workstream, we're delivering policy, guidance, contract clauses and training to support good implementation of offsite approaches, which is really around how do we get efficiency on the construction site with moving some or all of construction activities into a manufacturing environment to then bring it into site and essentially create an assembly site and your normal construction site. We've also just gone out recently with our off-site construction guidance to stakeholder review, and hopefully have a final version of that published in January next year. So in September 2021, our Treasurer, as pictured in the middle just there, released the Digital Asset Policy at the Built Environment Summit. This policy lays a powerful foundation for digital practice across our construction industry. The work is informed by international good practice, International Standard for Information Management, ISO 19650, and has been built on the backs of a lot of other good work happening all around the globe. This is an extract from the construction phase of this document. As you can see, requirements are graduated according to the project risk profile and arranged in themes. It's very important that when designing policy, especially across so many different portfolio types, that we're trying to meet the requirements as best as possible, so that projects aren't doing more or less than what they should be. It's also been designed to be easy to navigate using plain English. In implementing the policy, I wanted to highlight the importance of plain English. We've seen many digital transformations fail because they expect all other areas of the project or the stakeholders to use the technologies and tools to learn advanced principles, for instance, of BIM or digital engineering and data standards. Instead of us all learning IT language, we're working on translating that into our project team's language. And this is really around getting engagement and enable change all across government, especially at that leadership level that just are so far away from understanding the tools of BIM and digital engineering. So what's next? We're currently designing a piloting scheme. This will provide key case examples on projects and being able to use that to then leverage that across the whole of Vic government for broader application. We're also working with many projects and project organisations and gathering performance data to capture the benefits of good information management. We're also delivering standardised contractual clauses at the moment, a key priority of the Treasurer. Guidance and asset standards, as we know this issue needs to be tackled from multiple dimensions. So we're really keen on ensuring this is a collaborative transformation, and always happy to discuss in further detail with any stakeholder that's interested, and always up for some challenging conversations. So thank you for your time today, and thanks for the opportunity to present.
Thanks, Luke. Really exciting. And I mean, most of you that know what's going on across Australia have probably heard a little bit about what's happening in Victoria. And this has really given us a bit more clarity around the processes and procedures. And we're seeing a common theme across a lot of the presentations today discussing, the importance of the digital twin. So really exciting. Thanks, Luke. And questions will be coming up very soon. So our last presentation, and I will move to sharing the screen and changing the presenter today, is our final presenter, where we shift the theme a little bit. So we have Kesinee, and Kesinee is actually presenting today from Thailand, which is wonderful. And Kesinee will be discussing a little bit around the update of the work that she's been doing, the BIM community and the BIM adoption uptake in Thailand. Kesinee is the co-founder and principal of JIA Group. She effectively performs a lot of different activities across her role: client liaison, team management, project management, and effectively originates with an architectural background and spent a number of years in Australia, actually 4 years in Melbourne, which is great. And obviously, we are really excited to hear a little bit more around what's been going on in Thailand relating to BIM. So thanks, Kesinee, and over to you.
Thank you, Rebecca. All right, let me share my screen. All right, yep, can you see my screen? Okay. All right, that's perfect. Okay, First of all, thank you, Rebecca, for inviting me to join these sessions. I'm actually pretty excited to join you guys today, and it has been really good to see all the updated from Australia, because half of our work, like JI Group, we actually work on the project in Australia as well. I would have to say that because of the digital, it can actually make me to work on the Australian project and the other projects around the world, since I moved back from Melbourne. So I think BIM has become something in Australia that it become a norm right now, and in Thailand also it has become, for the past 10 years, I would say, it has been accelerate quite quickly. And at the moment, I have been a steering committee with the Architect Council of Thailand on the BIM maturity standard, and also the BIM skill competency. So from the architect background, we can then give the junior, like, I mean, let's say the student from the university, and also people who has been in the practice, can get a better view of what skill they have to prepare. They can do a reskill or upskill themselves. And also, I have been in the steering committee as well with the Thai BIM Association, mainly on the education part. For the BIM adoption in Thailand, if you're looking back at this research back in 2017, there is no Thailand mentioned in this map. And so we are wondering, why are we not actually in that? Basically, it's because, like, in Thailand, to start with BIM, we actually has been working from the bottom up rather than the policy from the government, or because if you know, in Singapore, they have been adopting BIM since 2000. I think it's 20,000. Since 2000, they have already started BIM. But in Thailand, we have started since then as well. However, it's not popular, and people are wondering what is actually BIM. And they actually concentrate on the modeling rather than the information inside. And from the presentation today, I think we have seen that everyone start moving forwards. BIM is only the subset, like a small part of it, and we start to talk about the digital twin. So back in Thailand, what we have been doing, actually we have a lot of activities in Thailand. There are so many organizations that has been involved. Back in 2016, we have first BIM guideline coming out from the we call Architectural Siamese associations, and also together with the Engineering Institute. However, back then it's only from the private sectors. Let's say most of the developers has been start doing BIM since 2012. And also back in 2016, we start to have like education institute, like let's say the university, start to form a new department, or maybe a new chapters or the sections, let's say like architectural intelligence department. So we can have more workforce coming out from the university and have more knowledge about BIM. They have been trained on the software. They have like a various software that they have to learn, and also they have to learn about the process about BIM. And lately, we also adopting the ISO 19650 into the course outline, and also many talk and events from TBIM as well. So with it's not only apart from the TBIM. It actually have the engineering part, which has a very strong input from the Engineering Institute of Thailand. they have got the, if you can see that they have got the guideline coming out in 2019, just before the COVID actually hits. After the COVID hits, everything has been online, but however, we're still moving forward. So from our first guideline in 2016, we have, I have been part of this development as well. We call BIM Adoption Guide and also Building Information Modeling Guide as well. So people, let's say, in the private sectors, for a smaller scale, like a smaller company, when they want to start, and also with the government sector who would like to adopt BIM into their organization, they can start like the basic on what is BIM and how can they start from these two guidelines, and then we start to have more in-depth. They call Building Information Modeling Standard, which has been published by Engineering Institute of Thailand in 2019. And recently, in 2020, we have launched the Thailand BIM Object, which led by Dr. Sampawat from TBIM. And we have got this, the public hearing on this one only this year, and it has to be online. We try to avoid online, but because of COVID, we cannot avoid that. So we just have this launch in September 2021. And for the BIM adoption in Thailand, the market actually has been grown quite a lot. This information is actually from the software resellers. So with the collaboration of the common data environment back in 2017, we actually have a lot more of people understand about this one, and we also start to implement BIM on the cloud platform to avoid all the confusion of the versions of the file that we're doing, to avoid the human error that we got. I think that is the big pain point in Thailand that we got so far. And starting in 2018, the infrastructure has been adopting that, because in Thailand, if you can see, we start to have a lot more of the huge mixed-use project development, which I will show you the project's image later on. And also we start to have infrastructure like the railway, and also including the BTS, which is the SkyTrain in the city, and also the underground, which is the MRT development in the heart of Bangkok, and it start to expand into the suburb. And apart from that, in 2019, we start to have a mega project, just like Forestiers or One Bangkok. And also there are a lot more of the urban development in Bangkok that start to have that. For Thailand, I would say that it has been quite revolution, because if you guys has working on BIM, you will know about the BIM object. And in Thailand, we start to have BIM object Thailand in 2019, and I think it start to kick off nicely in 2020. So with the BIM object, they have so many people involved. There are architect firms, contractors. With the contractor, I would say those are the main big contractors in Thailand. For the subcontractor or the smaller scale of contractors in Thailand, they don't have much of the knowledge about BIM yet. And with the real estate developers, most of the leading real estate developers has been using BIM in their projects. And also lately, the government sector start to understand and to see a lot more benefits, that if the projects in adopting BIM, they will get a lot more benefits on that. So the government sector start to do that as well. And I think the really good benefit of BIM that has been helping us a lot during this COVID-19 pandemic is that the BIM Object Thailand has started to have all the resource which it needs. COVID has come really quick, and we need a lot of resource from that to develop all the negative pressure room or the positive negative pressure room as well. And because of the pandemic, we need to set up a quick not we call hospital as well, but some of them is actually a hospital, or some of that has to be we set up a stadium, a sports stadium, and turn that to be a temporary hospital. And when one of the organization, I would say it's a BIM Object Thailand and CPAC, who actually help the hospital and also the government sectors to develop those hospitals quickly. And because of the object that we have from the BIM object and also the other suppliers and manufacturers that it start in 2019, but it takes almost 2 years to have like 60 manufacturers to have all the objects in the BIM Objects Thailand. So right now, I would say in 2021 and next year, we are quite ready to have all that in BIM Objects to implement the commercial project. But if we actually looking back into this survey, back in 2017, if we're looking at the digitalization readiness and also the potential, Thailand has been rated pretty low. We only have like 3 out of 10 and 4 out of 10. And we thought that, okay, we are doing BIM at the moment. How come we are not so ready for the digitalization? I think the digital, all the readiness is actually packed in Bangkok only, and around the country, let's say Chiang Mai, Phuket, and all the main city around Thailand, they are moving quite fast. So in 2021, the government has rolled out 5G around the country, and of course, it's still packed in Bangkok and also in the main city like Chiang Mai and Phuket, Ubon Ratchathani, Korat, and also Khon Kaen, which is like around Thailand, but only in the major city. However, we have already started talking about how could we adopt the common data environment, and we start to use a lot more of the cloud-based platform to link all the stakeholders into the work. So right now, I would say that we have a big gap. Some of people still using a CAD base, and also maybe the most popular software in Thailand, it will be SketchUp. However, in the big project and also in the government project, we have started adopting, let's say BIM 360 as a cloud-based, as a common data environment. So people who is actually practice BIM for the past 10 years, we start to work on the same platform, and we also start to have the files that we say it's kind of live. So we can actually share into BIM 360. We have like a weekly meeting and coordinate to reduce all the clashes, and also to actually, even one of the project during the COVID-19, one of the project that my friend has been working on, they have to do 360 camera and to compare that into the actual work site and with the Revit model. So they can compare these two, and they can do the site checkup and also to sign off the construction through the platform. So I would say that BIM adoption in Thailand has been starting from BIM level 1, and also we also have the BIM level 2, and we're trying to move to BIM level 3. And this year, I have seen a lot of the project that has been adopting ISO 19650. So there are many people who understand about this, but we can see the big gap that there's still the majority of the people in AEC profession that still need to be leveraged on their skills, either the modeling skills or the information management skill to understand about the BIM. As so far, we actually moving forward into the digital twin as well. So for Thailand, we have from the government, we have the policy about the Thailand 4.0. But however, people still wondering what is Thailand 4.0 because the 5G is not actually cover the whole country yet. However, we also talking about the smart city as well. And with the smart city, there are so many projects in Bangkok that we start doing the smart city platform and everything. So people start to understand that to link the smart city, we would need the BIM-based model and link that into the digital twin and also link it into the smart city platform. And for all of that, we start to, especially oil and gas industry, they have moving towards the digital twin and they start to have the digital twin platform that they can do analytic and they can also do the predictive maintenance as well. But backing into the railway or infrastructure and also the mixed use development. I think with the digital twin platform, they are still quite slow with that. And people is trying to digest that. How can they actually link BIM into digital twin and link that into the smart city as well? Because there are so many aspects that we have to fulfill. However, in Thailand, we have been having so many projects. If you can see, there are so many like complicated forms of architecture. If you're using BIM software, you can start using coding and you can start using the parametric form that the software nowadays can actually support that as well. And we try to work faster using some of the software like Grasshoppers or Dynamo, we actually start using that to do coding so we can work faster on the work that sometimes is repeating or some of the work that is quite hard on the form. And if you can see, we have like 101 True Digital Park. That project has already been completed of the first phase 1 and phase 2 construction. And that is one of the smart city that they're trying to link between the data that we have already got from the as-built model and link that into the IoT, which is the sensor, temperature sensors, humidity sensor, also lighting sensor, and get that back so we can have a good information. And when we can simulate that back into our BIM model and then start doing the facility management and also asset integrity management as well. But that is just something that we start exploring in Thailand at the moment. And not only that project, they also have many other mega projects like Forestiers, and this is in the heart of Bangkok. It's called One Bangkok, which is in the business district area. They have so many. They have office buildings. They have hotels, residential, and also commercial building. And that also link it into the infrastructure like MRT, which is the subway in Bangkok. So that project has been started using BIM in part of the project as well. And there are actually a few more mega projects like high-speed railway, which is connect the 3 airports of Bangkok, which is Don Mueang, Suvarnabhumi, and also further to the east part of Thailand, which is we have started the EEC, which is the new commercial district that will have the industrial park, smart city park, and also the airport link all together. And with that one, we have the speed railway connect within Thailand, and that will also be connected to China as well. So with that, all of these mega projects within a tight time frame and also within a limited resource like the workforce, BIM becomes one of the things that we need to start working on and invested in, because that helps us to reduce the waste, we would say the time management, and also to reduce all the human error again as well. And also not only in the commercial project, in our industrial, we start doing the as-is model, and we start doing a point cloud to get all the factory that has been built for the past 50 years and start to integrate that into the BIM model. And then we will transfer that into the digital twin platform as well. So we can actually we can operate and also do maintenance quicker on factory around Thailand. And I think that's it for Thailand. And I think we moving forward. This is a quick summary from the I would say Asia BIM collaboration that Dr. Sampawat from TBIM has started talking to the BIM association or the other BIM organization in Asia. So we have Singapore, who we have to say that Singapore has been quite our role model, that the government has been adopting BIM and also moving toward the integrated digital delivery. So something similar to digital twin as well. So Singapore will be, they have the building smart chapter, and they also author steering wheel that they would like to share with us. So with that, we would like to do the Asian BIM collaboration to implement win-win strategy. So Singapore, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Vietnam, India, and also Thailand can join together and have the strategy that we can link and we can work together, because at the moment in Taiwan and also in Hong Kong, they have already started the smart city implementation, and they're moving towards digital twin as well. And also together with Vietnam and India, I think for these two, Thailand is quite similar to India and Vietnam. We start about the same times. However, we are moving forward quite fast, but we still have a big gap between the BIM level 1 and also the BIM level 2. So that is a challenging that we are trying to move forward in Asia. I think that's all from my side. I don't know whether that cover everything that everyone wants to know, but that is somehow that Asia would like to move forward. Rebecca?
Wonderful, wonderful. Thanks for the presentation. And again, this was a really insightful presentation for us, because obviously many people don't really know a lot about what's going on across Asia. It's really interesting to hear about the collaboration and the work across that region. So thanks again for your presentation. Now I will move quickly to see the question panel and to the final few slides. So I'll just quickly rattle through the final few slides and then have a few minutes for questions before letting everyone go. So I will share my screen again, bear with me.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you. So again, a big thank you to all our speakers today. I'd like to very much, obviously, communicate back to the panel today that it's been such an exciting and eventful session, and we know that it's been quite interesting to see the different aspects of BIM implementation across the different regions. So we will now, if there are questions, it is now time for you to ask those questions. They should be available now for you. So, yep, if the panelists would like to turn on their cameras, we have time for questions. doesn't seem to be anything. I'm having some issues with my GoToWebinar panel, but let's wait a few minutes. We'll ask for questions to the panel. Any questions? Right, so no questions to the panel. I think everybody's kind of binned out by the end of the session. It's been quite a long session. So what we will do...
It has a lot to take in as well, Rebecca.
Any final comments from the panelists?
Mm-hmm.
Anything you want to add just for kind of a last tidbit for for those that couldn't log in today? Obviously, we're recording this, so anything final based on our conversation? I'll just quickly summarize by saying it is really important to address skills and education, not only in obviously the presentation that Adam and Luke and also Andrew have delivered today, but particularly in this region and across Asia, that we're really struggling with, the lack of skills in this space. So, it's one of the things that we're
exactly.
is educating our members, and this is why these presentations are so important. Thanks, everyone.
I have a questions because at the moment in Thailand, we're trying to moving forwards to the facility management and also the asset management as well. And I would like to know from the Australian side, with the facility management and all the knowledge from that side, how you guys actually moving forward from, from the construction towards that side, because it's not only the skill gaps and the lack of knowledge about that in construction, design and construction side. How in Thailand we found that for the BIM knowledge and digital twin, we kind of lack of resource on the facility management side.
I can answer. Okay.
Thanks, Luke.
One of the biggest issues for that, I guess, when it comes to facilities management or operations, is even if you've got a great model from the project, and should say that facility managers and operations and maintenance people should be involved at the start of the project too, to make sure that you can optimize those operations, and also that you don't have a mini project to fix all the project issues to make sure it can fit into your asset management scheme. But the people update what they see as important. If it's too time consuming, they don't do it. And so models from a project can be quickly out of date if there's no processes and checks and balances in place. So I guess it's a case of you need to make it fit for purpose, make sure it has the right level of detail in there that helps with that facilities management, that's not overly burdensome or too light on.
I agree with that, and I think also, the adoption of 19650 really gives us guidance around, the linking of data across the different stages. And I think, really the way that we execute on that and deliver that is really up to the individual client, the individual organisation. So if we're looking at that suite of standards, really, part 3 really focuses on that operational aspect of built assets, and that's what this would link into. But also British Standard 8536, which effectively looks at the requirements around facilities management, has been updated only a few years ago, actually, to include recommendations for links to facilities management when it comes to a BIM process. Really quite insightful. So that's my piece.
Thanks, Rebecca.
I know that we're out of time, so I'm sorry, we're going to have to move on. I just want to finalise today with one little thing that I'd like to speak about really quickly, and hopefully you can still see my screen, but it is effectively our Careers in BIM summary paper, which for those of you who don't know much about what we've been doing this year, we've hosted a number of sessions around skills and skills building for careers in BIM, and we've just finalised our report, which will be hosted on our website in the next 24 hours. We actually just putting that up there now. So it is accessible to all of those that want to read it. Basically, we will look at a summary of our sessions across the year, key industry insights around education and skills, and also the next steps for women in BIM in 2022. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone that attended today's session. Sorry we ran out of time. I would love to have more time with our panelists for questions, but I do thank you all for being a part of our session today, and especially to our speakers, thank you again, and I look forward to next time.
Okay, thank you, Ka.
Thank you, Rebecca. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.